I had always believed my life was perfect. I had a loving husband, John, and our 10-year-old son, Lucas. Our family was the epitome of happiness, a cozy home, laughter filling the air, and moments of simple joy that most people could only dream of. John had a stable job that he loved, and I had my own little world, taking care of Lucas and managing the house. Every morning, John would kiss me goodbye before heading off to work, and every evening, we'd share a quiet dinner together. The routine was comforting, predictable, but lately, something had been bothering me, something I couldn't shake. It was a feeling that gnawed at the edges of my mind, like a shadow just out of reach, always there but never fully visible. I couldn't pinpoint it, but I knew deep down that my life was about to change in a way I couldn't prepare for. It all started with small things, at first tiny, almost imperceptible shifts. John's once constant attention to me began to wane. His eyes seemed distant when they met mine, his touch less affectionate, like he was somewhere else. He would spend more time at work, but I told myself it was just the stress of life. After all, we were both busy, but there was a nagging voice inside me that couldn't be silenced. Something wasn't right. I wanted to believe it was nothing, that I was just being paranoid, but the feeling was undeniable, and it only grew stronger with each passing day. Then, one afternoon, everything changed. I was cleaning the house, going through some of John's old jackets to donate them, when I found a letter tucked away in the inside pocket of one of his suits. The envelope was old, yellowed with time, but it wasn't the condition of the letter that caught my attention. It was the name on the front, Rachel. I froze. Rachel was John's ex-girlfriend. I had heard of her in passing over the years, but John had always been dismissive whenever her name came up, brushing her off as nothing more than a past chapter, a fleeting phase in his life before he met me. He'd told me that she was just someone from his past, that I had nothing to worry about. But as I opened the letter, I felt a chill run down my spine. The words on the page painted a different picture. Rachel's handwriting was elegant and confident, and the letter spoke of a love that hadn't fully faded. She wrote about how much she missed him, how often she thought about their time together, how she wished they could rekindle what they once had. It was obvious she still held a special place for him in her heart. My stomach twisted in knots. I had always trusted John's assurances that Rachel was nothing more than a distant memory, but this letter told a different story. I couldn't understand why he had kept it. Was it just a memento of a past relationship, or was there something more? I stared at the letter, my mind racing. Why would he hide something like this from me? Why didn't he ever mention Rachel in the way she clearly still mentioned him? The feeling of betrayal was overwhelming, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Yet deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The truth came crashing down one evening at a party hosted by some of our closest friends. We were all gathered in the living room, chatting and laughing, when I noticed John and Rachel talking in the corner. At first, I didn't think much of it, but then I watched them more closely. The way their eyes met, the subtle smiles they exchanged, the way their conversation seemed to linger longer than necessary, something felt off. My heart started to race as I watched them, and the nagging feeling inside me flared to life. It wasn't just a casual conversation. There was something familiar, something intimate about the way they interacted. My stomach churned with jealousy and anger as I felt a pit form in my chest. I could feel my hands tremble as I watched them from across the room. It wasn't until I saw Rachel touch John's arm that I couldn't take it any longer. I had to confront them. I stormed across the room, ignoring the puzzled looks from our friends, and I stood in front of them, blocking their conversation. John looked up at me, his face going pale. "What's going on here?" I asked, my voice shaking with emotion. John tried to brush it off, giving me a forced smile. "Sarah, it's nothing. We're just talking, relax." But the look in Rachel's eyes told me otherwise. There was something there, something that didn't belong. I could see it now, the connection between them that I had ignored for so long. It wasn't nothing. They weren't just friends. You're lying, I whispered, my voice barely audible. My heart felt like it was breaking in my chest. John's expression faltered, but he quickly recovered. It's not what you think. But I knew it was exactly what I thought. The pieces clicked into place in my mind, and I could no longer pretend that everything was fine. The truth had been staring me in the face all along, and I had been too blind to see it. That night, I lay in bed next to John, unable to sleep, my mind racing. Lucas was asleep in the next room, blissfully unaware of the storm that was brewing. I tried to calm myself, but the pain was too much. How had I been so blind? How had I missed the signs? The late nights at work, the way he had become distant, the lack of affection. I had convinced myself it was just the pressures of life, but now I knew the truth. John wasn't just distracted. He had been emotionally checking out of our marriage for a long time. The betrayal wasn't just the kiss, the hidden letters, or the lingering glances. The worst part was the realization that I had been living a lie for so long. I had believed in our love, in the life we had built, and I had trusted him, but now everything felt shattered. I wasn't just hurt by John's actions. I was hurt by what it revealed about me, about my own insecurities. The truth was, I had feared being replaced. And now it seemed my fears had come true. I wasn't enough for him. I never had been. I had given everything to this marriage, and yet it was never truly mine to begin with. I wasn't just losing John, I was losing my own sense of worth. The next morning, I couldn't keep it in anymore. I had to confront John, to hear the truth from his lips. It was now or never. I had to know once and for all if he was still in love with Rachel. We sat in the living room, the air thick with tension. Lucas was at school, and it was just the two of us alone. I looked at him, trying to find the man I had once loved, but all I saw now was a stranger. John, I said, my voice trembling. Are you still in love with her? For a moment, he didn't say anything. He looked away, avoiding my gaze, and my heart sank. I knew then that my worst fear was true. Finally, he spoke. His voice was quiet, almost ashamed. I never stopped loving her. I thought I could move on. I thought I could love you, but I never really did. Not the way I loved her. His words felt like a slap to the face. I could feel the blood drain from my face as the weight of his confession hit me. All these years, I had been living a lie. He had never truly been mine. I wasn't the woman he wanted. I wasn't the one he still longed for. I stood up, my knees shaking. You're telling me the truth now, after all this time? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I didn't want to hurt you, he said, his voice soft. But I haven't been fair to you. I haven't been fair to either of us. I didn't know how to respond. The pain was overwhelming, and I couldn't breathe. Everything I had known, everything I had trusted, had been a lie. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I had spent so long trying to fix something that wasn't mine to fix. I had tried to hold on to a love that wasn't real, but I couldn't do it anymore. I'm leaving, I whispered. The words felt final, like the end of something I had tried so hard to make work. John looked at me, his eyes pleading. Please don't go. We can work this out. But I knew it was too late. There was no fixing this. He had already abandoned me emotionally, and no amount of pleading could change that. I can't keep living in this lie, John, I said, tears streaming down my face. I'm not your second choice. I'm not going to be the woman you settle for. I deserve more than this. I walked away from him, from everything we had built, but I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel vengeful. I felt free. In that moment, I realized that I deserved to be loved fully. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe, and share.